Ready? All right, welcome back to Fabrication 101. It's good to have you guys back in the shop with me today. Working on the Bronco, doing some more stuff. The time has come to make a decision about the Bronco, something I've been kind of putting off for a while, but the time has come to ditch the leaf spring rear suspension. Those leaves were always going to be, they were kind of an inexpensive short-term solution, and I always had plans to change them, but last year at United by Bronco last year, I bent my leaf springs pretty badly. And I'm actually, this particular one that I bent the main leaf, I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't break it. And while we're in the process of getting rid of those leaf springs, we are going to be getting rid of the Dana 60 rear axle, mostly because it's a narrow axle. This is a dually rear end, and I don't know where my brain was. When I started building this rear end, I didn't pay any attention to the width. I just grabbed one of the ones I had in the pile and started working on it. And the reason I never swapped it out for another one was because those spindles are bored out for a 35 spline axle, which was quite a bit of work. And so I just ran some wheel spacers on it. Everything seemed to work pretty well as long as I kept up with the wheel spacers and checked them periodically for torque specs, all that kind of stuff. I did have one stud come loose at one point. Unfortunately, I was driving along real slow because that wheel stud actually came out and got in between the caliper and the rotor and locked up the rear end, which was kind of a little nerve-wracking. I'm glad I wasn't going down the road when that happened, but anyway. We got a whole pile of new parts to go in the back of the Bronco, and in the center of this pile is this pile. This is a Sterling 10.5 or 10.25. I'm not quite sure how to tell the difference between them. I think this is a 10.25 because it's off an older, like a late 80s truck, I think. One of the big things about it is still 8 on 6.5, so it's not the metric pattern that's in the newer Ford trucks. The biggest bonus to that new rear end is I got it for free. So I know some people are going to say, oh, I should have gone with a 14 bolt. I don't have a 14 bolt laying around. That was a friend of mine had that laying around, and he said I could have it because he wasn't going to do anything with it. So we got a bunch of parts for it to go on. As you can see, we've already ripped the rear end out of the back of the Bronco. The rear suspension's gone. I still have to go in and cut out the front leaf spring mounts that I made a while back. Those shouldn't be too hard to get out of there. We'll get all that stuff cleaned off, and then we're gonna start mocking things up. Before we start mocking things up, I need to get that thing disassembled. So we're gonna do a little disassembly time lapse. And we'll be right back. All right, well, we got the, let's do it this way. We got we got the axle all cleared off, going a little further, and got the truss and diff cover set up from Ballistic Fabrication on here. Pretty nice parts. And I mean, I've built trusses before like this. The reality is, for what this cost, I can't build this and save myself money. And you know, unless my shop rate was thousands of dollars an hour, which it's not really. I don't really have a shop rate. I do this stuff for myself. But if I figured a shop rate of, let's say, even $100 an hour, there's no way I could build this, just even this piece of it, in the amount of time that would save me money. So it makes more sense to just go ahead and utilize parts that are proven, look good, good quality, and it's an Arizona company, so that's a bonus for me. So before I get this tacked in, I need to make a slight modification to it. I want to be able to put the bolts in here, and you can see this here is going to be in the way. This one's not quite so bad, but it's still in the way. So I think I'm going to end up trimming this one off at an angle so that I can get the bolt in there. This one I can trim just a little bit. I don't think it's going to hurt anything as far as the structure goes. So we're going to knock that out real quick. We'll get this thing tacked into place, and then we'll be ready to kind of set it under the Bronco so we can start mocking up our link mounts and our links, and keep moving this thing forward. All right, well, we're back out in the shop. I got the truss all done. It's just tacked in place for now. There's a good chance I may pop the top plate off so I can do some welding on the inside. We'll see. I went ahead and got some of the, actually not some, the old leaf spring brackets removed from the frame. A lot of cutting and grinding, so I didn't do a lot of videoing of that stuff. But now, I'm kind of ready to set this underneath the Bronco so I can mock things up some more, but I want to get my lower link mounts kind of figured out a little bit before I do that. And I'm using this trailing arm 4-link kit from Busted Knuckle Off-Road. It's kind of an awesome kit. Comes with this pretty beefy 2.5-inch 250 wall tube, but then it's also got I believe it's, I don't remember if it's 6061 or T56 or 5356 aluminum, or I may be wrong altogether. It may not be either one of those, but a big chunk of aluminum that goes inside of it. Makes them very sturdy, makes them less likely to bend, but this is also where my shock mounts are going to go. To mount these to the axle, I'm going to be using these brackets here. These are from Ballistic Fabrication. Again, I'm a big fan of them. I do have to modify these a little bit because one, these are meant to be straight off of the axle housing, and I want to put them at a little bit of an angle, so I'm going to have to cut about 1/2 inch off of two of them, so that I can angle these links in a little bit. And then I also need to do a little bit of a spacer. So this is the lower link axle mount that I'm going to be using. These brackets are meant for a 3-inch joint. This is only about 2.5-ish. so I need to come up with a little bit of a spacer in there to take up some of that extra play. So we're going to get these cut real quick and then figure out what I want to do for these spacers before I get them tacked onto the axle housing. See how that fits. Admittedly, the grinder may not be the, or the cutoff wheel may not be the best tool for the job, but so pretty close. Could use a little bit more. Let me grab my angling checking toolie. Suppose anybody will comment that this is on the back side of the axle and on the wrong side, or do you think?
Probably.
I think they'll give me the benefit of the doubt. It's pretty dang close. Could do a little bit more cleanup with a grinder, but that'll work. I just got one more to do. You can. All right, I think my microphone's on, hopefully. All right, so here's the plan. Instead of trying to hold these in a way that I can drill them out, I'm gonna clean them up. I'm gonna use this cheaper, smaller hole saw arbor as a way to center it. I need to cut this little bit off here, and then I can put the drill bit in there and use the 1/4 inch drill bit in there, which is the same size. This is 3/4 of an inch in diameter, which will center that part in the hole and allow me to at least tack the pieces in there with them relatively well centered. So hopefully this works. These are fairly cheap and I have several of them, so I don't mind sacrificing this tool to make another tool. So we'll get that cut down real quick, clean these up real quick, and we'll start tacking these things in here. All right, so we had a little bit of an audio issue here. So we're gonna do a little voice over magic. You can see I got my little hole saw arbor in there to line up the center point of these little spacers. We're just gonna knock them in with some TIG welding. Had to switch to this no back cap, very short setup so that I could fit it inside of there and try to get welded as best as I could all the way around. I'm pretty pleased with the way this came out, not too bad. Just some real simple TIG welds. Good place to practice some low clearance or tight space welding kind of stuff and have a little bit of fun with it. I'm pretty happy with the way this came out, and these things are looking pretty good. All right, it's a new day in the shop. It's actually the day after Thanksgiving, so the Friday after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there. Hope you had a good one. Hope you're feeling full and happy and having a good time. So anyway, we're back in the shop working on this rear axle. You can see that I've gone ahead and finished up attaching these lower link brackets. You can kind of see why I had to add this little bit of a spacer in there so that they're nice and tight. One thing, if you're going to do something like this, make sure that you can get this bolt in and out, okay? And it does come out. If I were to go in from this side, it would hit either a bracket, maybe the brake caliper, rotor, but on this way I know I can get it out. So you can see here what I was talking about, a little spreader tool. These are actually really useful making something like this. If you don't have your tabs attached to something else, you can actually use them to set your distance before you tack and weld them. And one little tip, especially if you have just tabs instead of bottoms and tops, weld from the inside out, because the bracket will always pull to the last side welded. And so if you weld outside in, the bracket will actually squeeze up on you and you'll have trouble getting your bracket back in, or your link mount, your joint back in there. This way, if you weld from the inside and then out, it'll open up a little bit and make it so that you can get things in there nice and easy. The next step in this process is to get that axle underneath that Bronco. Oh, look at that, it's in there. And it's a little rough. I mean, it's pretty close. I had to use the old string plumb bob technique since my laser died, or the batteries died anyway, but it's pretty close, front to back, side to side, and pretty close to ride height right now. So now we can start mocking up our links. I'm doing this a little differently because I'm using the busted knuckle lower setup. Normally I would set the rear axle where I want it, figure out where I want the front part of the frame side of the link mount, and then build my links to fit that. Because I've got an existing link length, I'm going to put the link together, mock it up on the axle, and then hold it in place where I think it's going to go, and put the brackets in that way, and then try to make sure that both sides match, they're both equal, and they both fit properly. So all right, let's try this again. Make sure microphone's on this time. I'm just going to try and remember everything I just talked about. We're pretty much at a stopping point for this video. I'm not able to do my frame side of the lower link brackets just yet. I need to take care of a couple other things. These brackets from Ballistic Fabrication are meant to be the lower and the upper are all one unit, and I don't have the parts I need to do the upper part just yet. I do have them, they're on the front of the Bronco. So I'm going to be taking my the joints out of these lower links that are in the front and swapping them for the ballistic joints that I bought, the big heavy duty ones. They're a little bit better suited to be a lower link for this front axle. And they're way overkill to be an upper link in the back. So I'm going to be swapping out the front joints for the new ones and using the fronts the lower ones to make my upper links in the back. And so I need to get those off and swapped around before I can finish building these link mounts for the back. But I'm super happy we got a pile of work done. There's still a pile left to do on this pile, quite a bit to do, especially if I'm going to make it to the United by Bronco event in beginning of March, late February, or end of February. So we got a lot to go. A couple things to decide. Should I run dual rear shocks? I have my existing shocks, plus I have the new coilovers for the back. With these trailing arm link kits, they are set up so that you can run a dual shock if you need to. I don't need to. I think I might want to just for the cool looking factor. It's super unnecessary, but it might be kind of fun to do. So give me your two cents on that. Give me your thoughts on whether I should run both rear shocks, the coilover and the emulsion shock, and see how that looks on there. I think I'm gonna have to relocate my exhaust in the back. I think my exhaust tubing that runs down this side is gonna be in the way of the shocks, which I was hoping I wouldn't have to deal with, but it's not that big of a deal. I'd rather have it running out here as far back as I can so that when I'm running down the road or even just putzing along on a trail, I'm not getting a lot of exhaust back into the cab of the rig, but we'll figure that out when we get there. So in the meantime, this is going to do it for this episode of Fabrication 101. Happy Thanksgiving, and when you're done eating, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and go build something.